Hi everyone, this is Nabila Zaman and today we are going to learn about the conditions of supply. So if you haven't watched the first video, please do, and the link is given above. So let's get started. A changing supply occurs when the conditions that face a supplier they alter. And in such a situation, a different quantity will be offered for sale at each price. And therefore, supply may increase or supply may decrease. For example, there is a good period of weather and therefore the rice supply in a country is increasing because this will make it possible for rice farmers to supply more since the weather is good for supplying the crop that they're growing. On the other hand, if the weather is not suitable for growing crops, the supply will decrease. And there are reasons like this that cause either an inward shift or an outward shift in the supply curve. So let's see more examples. Now, often there is one misconception that changes in price can cause the shift. In the previous video, we have learned that when price increases, we see an extension in supply. And when price decreases, we see a contraction. Now, those are just movements along the time and the curves do not shift right or left. We are going to talk about certain conditions now under which supply curves shift, and that is not a movement. Now, let's look at the shifts in the supply curve. So, an increasing supply as seen in the first diagram or graph 1 is an rising supply at any given price which causes the supply curve to shift to the right, as you can see in the graph. In graph 2, we see a decreasing supply, which is a falling supply at any given price, causing the supply curve to shift to the left. In graph 1, we can see increasing supply because the curve has shifted to the right. And in graph 2, we see a decreasing supply as the curve has shifted to the left. Now let's look at the causes for which there are changes in supply. Now, cost of production. So when cost of production change, it will also change the position of the supply curve. Because a rise in the cost of production will increase the price of that product. And therefore, suppliers won't be able to supply the product anymore, and that will decrease the supply. So supply curve will shift inward. And when the cost of production fall, it will shift the supply curve outward, that is to the right, indicating more quantity supplied at a lower price. So we can see that when the cost of production increases, the supply shifts inward, and when cost of production decreases, the supply shifts outward. Let's look at the next factor. The next factor is improvements in technology. Now, this is closely related to the previous one since improvements in technology raise the productivity of capital and hence it reduces the cost of production, and this results in an increase in supply as we just talked now. Now, due to the availability of more efficient capital goods and methods of production, it has become much cheaper to produce a range of products. And therefore, whenever there are improvements in technology, there is an outward shift in the supply curve. Let's look at the next factor. The next factor is taxes. Now, direct taxes on firms, including corporation tax and indirect taxes such as VAT or excise duty, are effectively a cost that firms have to pay. And therefore, a rise in the rate of existing tax or the imposition of a new tax will make the product more expensive. And we know that whenever there is a rise in the cost of production, so a rise in tax as well will reduce the supply as it increases the cost of production. The supply curve will shift to the left and vice versa. Subsidies. Subsidies are payments or like financial help which are given by the government so that a farm keeps producing a product which is either helpful to the people or there is no other farms that produces that particular product. Now, any sort of increase in subsidies will cause an increase in supply, causing the supply curve to shift outward, as it reduces the cost of production. So supply curve will shift outward since there is a reduction in the cost of production. And any decrease in subsidy will reduce supply by increasing the cost. So the supply curve will shift leftward. Weather conditions and health of livestock and crops. Now, changes in weather conditions affect the population of agricultural products. For example, good weather around harvest time is definitely going to increase the supply of a number of crops. So the supply curve of those products will shift outward, and a bad weather condition may reduce the supply of some crops. So the supply curve will shift inward. Disasters and wars. This is closely related to the weather condition. So natural disasters such as hurricanes, floods, and everything can result in a significant decrease in supply. Also, tsunami or earthquakes and everything, they can cause huge destruction to the infrastructure of a country. So obviously, our supply curve will shift inward. Now, this is an interesting one, the prices of other products. Now, a farm doesn't usually just produce one particular product. It produces a range of products. And if a product is more popular, then its price will rise and supply will extend, since we learned that price and supply are directly proportional. So in order to produce more of this good, the farm will divert or take the resources from the production of other products in order to supply the product that is high in demand more. So to supply one product more, another product's production may fall, which results in an inward shift in supply. The next one is discoveries and depletions of commodities. Now, the supply of some commodities such as coal, gold, and oil is affected by the discoveries of new sources. For example, the discovery of new oil fields will definitely increase the supply of oil as there is an increase in the resources. And in contrast, if coal is used up in some mines, the supply of coal will be reduced in the future because our resources are decreasing and our capacity to produce those products will decrease as well. So if there are any depletion in the commodities, then we know that the supply curve will shift inward. And this is the end of this chapter. And thank you so much for staying till the end of this video. And please share this video if you have found this helpful, and also give a thumbs up. It would really help us a lot. Thank you so much.